Hello and welcome to my review of WWE No Mercy 2016. In the background, I'm just going to have a little bit of WWE 2K16 gameplay, just for something for you to watch while I talk about what I thought of the pay-per-view. Going to feature 3 of the singles matches from the event in a tag match, in a 6-man elimination tag team match. So, let's get straight into it. First up, I'm going to skip the pre-show. I didn't watch the pre-show. I only woke up about a quarter of an hour before the main show started. So, I know there was an impromptu 8-man tag team match and Kurt Hawkins made an appearance. American Alpha won the 8-man tag team match, which, you know, keeps their momentum going. But that's really all that happened from that on. Kurt Hawkins is going to have his first match on SmackDown, if anyone really cares. Baron Corbin versus Jack Swagger got moved from, I believe it was supposed to be the pre-show, onto the main card, so we'll discuss that when the time comes. But the first match of the evening was the triple threat match for the WWE World Heavyweight Championship. So they decided to go with the main event first, which was interesting. I think, honestly, at first I thought maybe they were planning on doing some sort of screwy finish and having another world title match at the end of the show. But as the night wore on, it became clear they were just trying to avoid conflict with the presidential debate. They wanted to get their world title match seen before everyone turned off to go and watch the debate, so they had no faith in their fans to stick around, which is interesting. Anyway, so we had obviously Dean Ambrose, the former champion, John Cena, the 15-time champion, going for equalising Ric Flair's record, and we had AJ Styles, the champion. Now this match, it was good. It was alright. It wasn't the best match that any of these men have been involved in, and I didn't agree with a few things. The first is I hate the double submission spot, because it just makes at least one person look really stupid. Like if Dean Ambrose puts on the calf killer on AJ Styles, why does John Cena put on the STF instead of breaking up that submission? It does not make sense from John Cena's standpoint to add to the submission to help Dean Ambrose win the match when it's every man for himself. It doesn't make sense. Secondly, because Ambrose had AJ's left leg and Cena usually does the STF on the left leg, it looked so awkward because he was trying to put the STF on Styles' right leg and couldn't really figure out how to do it. But yeah, the spot itself I think is stupid. I just don't like it. I don't think it's a good way of doing things. There's better ways, I think, of not having a clear winner of a match. But then what made it even more stupid was they didn't even end the match. AJ tapped out and there was a bell, and then Cena and Ambrose started fighting, and then the commentators were just like, yeah, this match is still going on, and it was like, no. There was a tap out and a bell. The least you could do is declare, as there was no clear winner, we're going to restart the match. So I didn't think much of that little bit in the middle of it. You know, I know what they were trying to do. They were trying to keep it interesting, trying to keep us on our toes. But all that served to do for me was make Cena look a bit stupid and made Styles tap out for no reason when they weren't planning on him losing the title. Then, when the match did continue / restart, it should have restarted, but it continued. And the end came when Cena hit, I think they called it an avalanche AA, which I quite liked, off the second rope, I believe it was, on Dean Ambrose. Then Styles came in and hit Cena with a chair. So it took AJ Styles, a veteran of like 20 years, like 20 odd minutes to realise he could use a weapon in this match. Because it's no disqualification. But then he also hit Cena twice with a chair, once in the stomach and once in the back, and then pinned him for the win. Now, if you go back to 2009-10 and ask Randy Orton if you can keep Cena down with 2 chair shots, he would have laughed at you, because it just doesn't seem, after Cena's career thus far, that just doesn't seem realistic. I thought Styles was going to lay out Cena, then pin Ambrose off the avalanche AA. That would have been more believable, because Cena's put people away with the second rope attitude adjustment before, so Ambrose wouldn't have looked too bad for taking that pin. But they decided to have Styles pin Cena after 2 chair shots, which just seemed a bit of an anticlimax. The feeling I got coming out of that match was a bit anticlimactic. That's all I can say really with regard to it. It felt a bit like they put it on first, and I thought that was going to be a mistake because I thought, well, what's going to be able to follow this? But as it turns out, it wasn't the best. if I'm honest, it wasn't the best match of any of the men's career. It wasn't the best match of any of the men's year, to be honest. So anyway, we'll move on from that now. Styles retained. I predicted that. WWE 2K16 in the predictions video predicted John Cena to win his 16th world title. So I am 1-0 up against the game at this stage in the last ever prediction competition between me and 2K16. And the reason it's the last ever is because tomorrow 2K17 comes out. So we'll be using that game from now on. So if you're excited for 2K17, there'll be lots of content from that game on this channel, so make sure you subscribe. But that's enough cheap plug-in. So Styles won, I was right, game was wrong, moving on. Next match was Nikki Bella against Carmella. And I don't know, it was a short match. Can I just point out, the pay-per-view finished UK time, I think at about 20 to 4. When it's scheduled till 4, so it finished like 20 minutes early. So it was just over a 2.5 hour show when it's supposed to be 3. And this match and the other women's match were pretty short. So I don't see why they didn't. If the show was running so short, even with an extra match added in, the pre-show match being put into the main card, why didn't they give the women a bit longer? They're trying to say that, you know, women's wrestling matters and they're treating it equally, but the women combined got less time than that world title match. The two women's matches combined got less time, so they're not really doing a very good job of that. Nikki Bella won. Wasn't paying a whole lot of attention to the match, if I'm honest. It wasn't keeping my attention. I predicted Nikki would win. I think the game did as well, if I remember rightly. I think so. I think that is 2-1 to me now. I've got 2 out of 2, and the game's got 1 out of 2 correct. So I don't know what else I can say about that match. It didn't really keep my attention. It didn't go long enough for me. You know, it could have. I mean, I know I just said it didn't keep my attention, but the intention of the match wasn't good enough either. Like, whether it pulled off, whether it was an interesting match or not, the fact that they only gave them maybe 10 minutes to work with, if that, probably including the entrances, just shows they weren't really that bothered. And I was quite excited for this match, not because I thought it was going to be a 5-star classic, but just because it was a women's match on a pay-per-view without a title on the line and with an actual storyline behind it. So it was like a proper women's feud. You know, it was basically the Randy Orton Bray Wyatt of the women's division. There was no title on the line, but they had a proper storyline leading into it. However, it didn't turn out that way. It turned out to just be a throwaway match. Anyway, next up was, in my opinion, the first wrong result of the night. It was Rhino and Heath Slater defending the WWE SmackDown Tag Championships against the Usos. And I said in the predictions video that I think the Usos needed the win here and needed to take the titles. But they didn't. But I think they tweeted something out, the Usos, about Slater tapping or something. I didn't see Slater tap. The commentators didn't mention it. You know, so, and they've just done. I'd be surprised if they were doing that finish, because they've just done a controversial did he or didn't he tap storyline, like literally last week on SmackDown on Tuesday with Baron Corbin and Jack Swagger. So I'd be surprised if they ran the same story again on SmackDown, especially if Raw did it. You'd think, okay, 2 different creative teams, fair enough. But if the same creative team did it twice in a week with 2 different storylines, it'd seem a bit odd, that. Anyway, so Rhino did all the work again, like saved the match and picked up the win. I feel like I can't decide if they're going the way of eventually splitting them up and Rhino kind of having enough of doing all the work, and that's how they're going to split them, and that's why they set it up. So, excuse me, so Rhino seems to do all the work, or if it's just like the dynamic of the team, because, you know, Slater's not as dominant, you know, as Rhino can be. I don't know where they're going with it. It's an easy split up if they decide to, put it that way. I don't think Rhino and Slater should have retained. I think the game predicted they would, and I predicted the Usos would, so that makes us 2-2, makes us even. But it's not because I predicted wrong, and just that I'm not happy with that result. It's because I don't think it was right. I think the Usos, since turning heel, have very little momentum because, you know, they won one match against, was it the Hype Bros, I think, at Backlash, and then they lost the final, which was the right decision at the time because it was the right payoff for the storyline. But then they've lost to Slater and Rhino again since, at least once. They might have even lost to them on SmackDown. So, and I think they lost to American Alpha last week on SmackDown, actually. I seem to remember reading that somewhere. So they seem to just be losing constantly since they turned heel, which isn't a good way of keeping them at the top and keeping them relevant. The other reason why it's a mistake is, in the predictions video, I feel like I touched upon the fact that there's not really any credible heel challenges for Slater and Rhino other than the Usos. You've got the Vaudevillains, who have done nothing since coming up to the main roster. You've got the Ascension, who have just become a joke since they moved up onto the main roster. And on the pre-show, by the way, that was the heel team, was the Vaudevillains and the Ascension, and they lost. So there's not a single heel tag team on SmackDown at the moment with any momentum. So I don't know where they're going with it next. You know, I think Usos American Alpha for the titles. Survivor Series wrote itself, but apparently the creative team disagreed. So we'll have to wait and see where they're going with this. Only till tomorrow evening, because obviously SmackDown's now live on Tuesdays. But I don't think it was the right decision. I really don't. Okay, up next. By the way, if I got the match order wrong at all, I didn't make any notes during the show at all. So I just did it off memory afterwards. And all I've got on my phone in front of me is the matches. So I've tried to do them in the order I think they were on. But if anything's wrong, then I do apologise. The next match, as far as I remember it, was Baron Corbin versus Jack Swagger. Jack Swagger is in the ring at the moment on this gameplay. This match, I think, was probably the most predictable, that Corbin was going to pick up the win after the controversial end on SmackDown. I think having him cheat to win, you know, just a quick thumb to the eye, gives Swagger something to complain about, and I think they're going to carry it on for, you know, maybe, I mean, I can't see it being on a Survivor Series main card, Jack Swagger versus Baron Corbin at this point. But, you know, maybe it's a solid pre-show match for them to have on it, or maybe they both join a separate Survivor Series team and are in a multi-man match. They're going to carry the feud on either way, I think. It wasn't a clean win. So, it was an alright match. Again, it was nothing special. It was pretty short. I don't really know what to say. I said my piece in the predictions video about Jack Swagger. He obviously wasn't getting the win. He's not going anywhere fast. He's had 2 opportunities. He's messed them both up. Baron Corbin seems to be getting the slowest of slow builds ever, or they just don't know what to do with him and he's just going to stay in this spot in the card forever, because he's either getting built up for something big but really slowly and deliberately, which isn't WWE style, to be honest. When they decide they're pushing someone, they Roman Reigns them, or he's just going to sit around the bottom of the mid-card for the rest of his career. Who knows? We'll find out. But there was nothing to get too excited about with this match. I don't know why they moved it off the pre-show onto the main card, to be honest. It didn't need that, really. It wasn't anything bigger than a pre-show. A pre-show match. Sorry, I lost my train of thought for a second there. I was just thinking, actually, just looking at the screen, that the next match I'm going to talk about is Miz Ziggler, who are in the ring at the moment, and how I was debating, and there was a bit of debate going on Twitter as well, about what was going to be the main event, you know, because there was still 3 matches. There was Miz Ziggler, there was Orton Wyatt, and of course there was the most likely main event, which was Alexa Bliss against, at that time, an unconfirmed opponent. So, I mean, any of them could have been the main event, right? But there was a bit of debate, obviously, because if Ziggler was going to retire, that could have been potentially the end of the show. But then obviously you got Orton and Wyatt, and I think most people were siding with Miz Ziggler closing the show, to be honest. But it went on next, and again, I don't think they made the right decision. I think what the game predicted was a perfect ending, was like a Miz disqualification, so he kept the title, but Ziggler didn't retire. I don't think taking the title off Miz at this point was the right decision. I think he's been doing great things with it. I think he's been one of the more entertaining and more consistent and just one of the best elements of the SmackDown roster since the split, to be honest, has been The Miz. I mean, behind AJ Styles and potentially Heath Slater, who's been getting, you know, a better crowd reaction. And I don't mean like getting cheered, because that's not his crowd reaction. He's, you know, he's hated, and that's his job. So I don't know. I think he loses a lot of momentum by losing the title there. Obviously Ziggler gains a lot. The crowd were very, very into this, and it was a good match actually. I enjoyed it. There was a lot of false finishes. They had it got a bit busy at the point where the Spirit Squad came down, and they didn't do anything with the Spirit Squad. Like, they got up on either side, opposite sides of the ring, and the referee was looking at one, and the other one didn't get in the ring to attack Ziggler. And I was like, I don't understand what your plan was supposed to have been when you came out. Like, you didn't do anything. You came and stood there and got kicked by Ziggler. Like, I don't know. I just didn't understand how the interference went, because neither of them did anything. Surely one of them should have distracted, and the other one should have got in the ring and beat up Ziggler for a bit. You know, like, done these... Was it Kenny that used to do the leg drop off the top rope? He could have just landed that on Ziggler or something, because I believe Ziggler was down when they came out as well, so it would have been perfect. But they didn't do anything, and then they got ejected, and for some reason Maurice went with them, even though I don't think the referee even specified she had to go. And then, once again, they did the thing where, oh look, it's now actually one-on-one, the heel can't win. So, it just makes Miz look really weak. Ziggler could have come out of this looking strong, not having to retire, and without the belt, in my opinion. And it would have been the correct booking, but it's not what they did. The crowd loved it. It was a bit of a feel-good moment. It probably would have been more of a feel-good moment if it had been for a title Ziggler hasn't held 4 times already. You know, it was a bit... That story should really have been run with the world title on the line. Maybe not between Miz and Ziggler, but I mean, could he have done Styles Ziggler? That would have been an interesting match. That would have been a good match. Or they could have done it with someone other than Ziggler, you know, and it would have been just as good. But anyway, so yeah, Ziggler won. Technically, me and the game both predicted a Ziggler win, but we both predicted a disqualification win. I don't know whether to count that as a correct prediction or not, but it doesn't really matter anyway, because we were either both right or both wrong, so it doesn't affect the score. We're still level, basically. Right, the next match, obviously, was supposed to be Alexa Bliss versus Becky Lynch for the SmackDown Women's Championship, but Becky Lynch is carrying some sort of injury or some sort of knock and wasn't cleared to compete, and it can't be that. I would say it might not be that serious because they haven't taken the title off her, but it obviously cancelled the match. So Bliss comes out and cuts a promo, you know, boo-hoo, Becky's injured, heel promo, blah blah blah. And I was thinking, who could possibly fight her? And there's only one other face woman on the SmackDown roster, which is Naomi, because Nikki Bella's already wrestled, Becky Lynch is injured, so it was obvious it was going to be Naomi. And then they made one of the weirder booking decisions of the night, because this match, let me just spell this out for you without using names, so you don't show any favouritism to one side or the other. You just consider how weird this booking was the #1 contender for a championship versus someone who wasn't on the show because they lost the #1 contendership match to this #1 contender. So why then does the one who wasn't supposed to be on the show, except for the injury to the champion, why does she win? Like, why did Naomi win that match? Like, I don't understand the booking logic there, because Alexa Bliss is supposed to be the #1 contender to the title, so she should be booked strong so that she's believable when she goes against Becky Lynch as a threat to take the title off her. Now, granted, they could go triple threat route, but they haven't had the match that they built up for, so why not just keep building up the match and have it in the next pay-per-view? Or have it on, at least have it on SmackDown before you then move on to someone else being in the title picture. But they haven't done that. So, like they did with Orton and Wyatt, Orton wasn't cleared to compete. So what did they do? They carried on building the feud and had it at the next pay-per-view. That's what they should have done with Alexa Bliss and Becky Lynch. But it's not what they've done. I don't know where they're going with it. Unless they still do that, in which case it was an even more ridiculous loss. Because you're supposed to go into a title match. I mean, I wasn't going into the title match believing that Alexa Bliss could beat Becky Lynch for the title. I just didn't think that was going to happen. But you're supposed to go in with some sort of sense of the champion's title is in jeopardy. And you don't now. If Alexa Bliss gets a one-on-one match with Becky Lynch, well, she couldn't beat Naomi, who wasn't even supposed to be on the show. So how's she going to beat the champion? You know, it's just... it's just not a logical way to go about things. The game incidentally thought Alexa Bliss was going to win. I don't know if this counts as a prediction win for me because I predicted Alexa Bliss to lose technically, and the game predicted her to win, but it was against the wrong opponent. So I'm gonna discount it and say that we're still even because we didn't make a prediction on Alexa Bliss versus Naomi. So I can't really say, oh, I got that one right when I didn't even know that match was going to happen. So we'll say that we're still even. We're either at 2-2 or 3-3, but we're still even no matter what it is. So there you have it. Right. So the main event, and you know what, we're nowhere near finished with this match. So as long as I get this main event spoken about before the first pinfall, I'm just going to call it not an elimination match and cut it. And say that match that it wasn't an elimination match after all. I'm just going to change the rules like WWE do all the time mid-match. So unless this is it. That is it. That's the first elimination. Okay, so we're not going to do that. I might just crop it together and include all the other pinfalls or something. But anyway, the video won't last too much longer because we've got one more match to talk about, which is Randy Orton versus Bray Wyatt. They did a weird segment halfway through the show where someone discovered a new filter on the video editing where you can swirl Randy Orton's face because he was looking in the mirror and his face started swirling. He did some awful acting. By the way, Randy Orton with his little bit of grey stubble just looked a bit rough, to be honest. He didn't, and a bit old. He didn't look that. I know what look he's going for. Like, oh, look at me, I've got stubble. I'm a bad guy. I'll beat you up. But he just looked like a bit old and haggard, to be honest, because it was grey stubble. But anyway, Orton Wyatt. It was actually an alright match. At points, I felt like it was a bit slow and sluggish, and there was a couple of bits that just didn't run as fluidly as they obviously envisioned them flowing. Like, there was a bit where I think Orton went for the RKO, Wyatt turned it round into Sister Abigail, and then Orton turned that into a schoolboy roll-up, and it sounds good, and it probably sounded good on paper, and they probably even practiced it, and it probably even went well, but on the show, it just didn't run that well. It just wasn't. Some of the stuff just wasn't that fluid. It was a good overall match. The ending, Luke Harper coming back, just as Orton looked like he was about to win the match, doesn't really do Bray any favours because, he looked weak in victory. I think I in the prediction video mentioned Eric Rowan. At that point, I didn't even realise Eric Rowan's out injured at the moment and that Luke Harper's back. Because them two, I think they just sort of, they're a proper tag team. They just take turns on TV, don't they? I can't remember the last time they were both actually fit for TV. Not injured. Neither of them injured. But so I sort of half got it right. I predicted Wyatt to win. The game predicted Orton to win. So I win the prediction war. Whether you call it 3-2, 4-3, 4-2, 5-3 even with the Bliss match. I don't know, but I'm gonna say it was 3-2. I got that prediction game right. I'm gonna say 3-2. I think. I definitely won it anyway. So I beat the game and the last ever one-on-one between me and 2K16 before 2K17 comes out. But like I was saying, I don't think it did Wyatt any favours. I think you can look weak while winning, and Wyatt. It wasn't like Luke Harper just helped Wyatt pick up the win. He saved Wyatt from pretty much definitely losing the match. Like, Orton was setting up for the RKO, so as long as he hit that, you could assume that he was gonna win the match. And then Harper turned up, and then seconds later Wyatt wins the match. So it makes Wyatt look a bit weak, in my opinion. That so. And Orton's been getting one over on him, causing him losses to Kane and stuff. I don't think Wyatt's come out of this feud looking that good. With a clean win, he would have, but with a tainted victory like that, I don't think he has. So, again, it'll be interesting to see where they go from here going forward. Obviously, the world title picture is not going to change much since they had the controversial ending. And I caught the beginning of Talking Smack straight after it, and Daniel Bryan and Shane McMahon were talking about how it was going to be basically going to be Ambrose or Cena facing Styles one-on-one. So I assume on SmackDown they're going to have a one-on-one match between Ambrose and Cena for #1 contenders status, and then the winner faces Styles at Survivor Series would be where I assume they're going to go. So that doesn't leave any room open for Wyatt or Orton to enter the title picture, and with Styles still being champion anyway, Wyatt was never going to get the next title shot. So I don't know where they go with this unless they carry the feud on. Maybe build teams around Wyatt and Harper and then Orton, and get Orton to build a bit of a following. Who knows? Who knows where they're going to go with it? Maybe that's where Corbin and Swaggart go from here as well. Maybe Corbin would be quite a good fit with the Wyatt family actually in terms of look and attitude. So maybe. And we all know Orton and Swaggart have something in common. Have a common interest, which is why they've both had a couple of suspensions. So, you know, maybe they could bond over that, who knows. But for now, I'm going to wrap this video up. Overall, the show, I think, it was alright. It wasn't anywhere near as good as Backlash, in my opinion. But it was an okay show. It was exactly what it was always going to be, which was a bit of a placeholder. The Backlash was always going to be a bit special because they had to pull out all the stops because it was their first solo. Their first one brand pay-per-view, if you like, the first SmackDown only pay-per-view since the new split. This is just a placeholder in place for Survivor Series. I'm expecting Survivor Series to be a lot better, and I'm probably expecting Hell in a Cell at the end of the month to be a lot better as well. So stay tuned for my match simulations, predictions, and review of that. But for now, excuse me, make sure you leave a like on the video, leave a comment with what you thought of the show. Let me know how you felt it went, what you thought they did right and wrong, what you agreed with, what you thought was good, what you thought was bad, all your thoughts on the show. Leave me a comment in the comment section down below. Don't forget to subscribe if you're new here, and especially if you're excited for 2K17, because that should be coming to the channel tomorrow. So make sure you subscribe so you can check that out. Share with your friends if you think they would enjoy. But for now, all I have left to say is thank you very much for watching. As always, I've been Ambrose, you've been amazing, and I will see you next time.
Here are your winners, a real American, Jack Swagger, the Apex Predator, Randy Orton, and Dolph Ziggler.
And there you have it, an amazing elimination contest, and in the end, only one man stands high. 3